The Conservative Party and Jeremy Hunt announced a budget for 2024. Remember guys, this is an election year. A lot of things are at stake for the Conservative Party. Remember, the Conservative Party is and all of their very interconnected and well-connected organization is trying to get your vote. Be aware of that. Okay. Jeremy Hunt and the Conservative Party, Rishi Sunak, they're still claiming that we are facing this economic crisis because of the pandemic and because of the war in Ukraine. By the way, the war in Ukraine that was heavily promoted and funded by the Conservative Party that is in power right now, and also by Boris Johnson, that went to Ukraine and persuade, those individuals, Zionists and Nazis, to fight against Russia and in not sign a peaceful deal with Putin in Russia. This is really crucial for you to understand the whole situation that we're in right now. And then also we can find the root cause of the problem, which is essentially Boris Johnson, Conservative Party, Rishi Sunak, Jeremy Hunt, in all of their network. Of course, interest rates right now is really high and inflation is above what the Bank of England promised us that would be at this moment right now, 2024. And obviously their economic policies, fiscal and monetary policies failed us. Of course, now Jeremy Hunt, the Conservative Party, and Rishi Sunak will come out election year, remember, to say that they are really sorry for poor families, which is accounting for nearly 25% of the UK's population right now, millions of people. And they're gonna come up with that strategy to pretend that they're gonna provide us the cuts in terms of taxation, and so they will save us from being poor. Let's just mention that we are living in poverty because of their own failed policies, and this is the situation. We have to make sure that we don't allow them to use those tactics to deceive us even further. Let me just break down that to you. Yes, everything's a lot more expensive, including everything what you pay for your house, rent, your mortgage, food that you buy, groceries, equipment, clothing, tax stuff, literally every single thing that you consume nowadays is a lot more expensive because of the Conservative Party. So now Jeremy Hunt and the Conservative Party and Rishi Sunak decided, because it's election year, they decided to reduce the national insurance tax that you pay from 10% to 8%. I have to mention that again, of course, it's election year. Remember guys, don't get fooled by them. So remember last November, they did the same thing, which it was a 2p cut, which has reduced the national insurance from 12% to 10%. So now they are applying the same technique to gain votes, essentially, but reducing from 10 to 8. This is what they are claiming from April this year. If you are earning on average £35,000 per year, that would be an equivalent to £450 per year. So with that cut on national insurance, you will benefit only £450 per year. When you account £450 for the levels of inflation that we see nowadays, you will still be worse off in terms of all the costs that you already have and not bringing you sufficient benefit to get out of your difficult financial situation. Of course, that is a strategy that they're using to gain your vote, but make sure that you don't get hooked by a Conservative Party and Jeremy Hunt claim that inflation will fall below 2%. However, that may not going to be true. As a matter of fact, we are dealing with a lot of uncertainty. War in Ukraine, which could escalate. Then there is a war in Palestine as well that is being occupied by the oppressors, and all of which could have a domino effect in our economy, proving that inflation could actually rise rather than fall. So pay attention to that. Not to mention that we are not growing at all in terms of economy. And for that reason, the government will have to stimulate the economy, and that may well increase inflation as well, which means that what he's saying, it is not factual, and in fact is very misleading, and it could well be seen as a tactic to deceive you. So again, be aware of that. Fact is that inflation is still way above the below 2% target that the government and the Bank of England promised the population. So now they are already trying to claim that inflation is meeting their target, which is again false analysis. You have to be careful of that, because 2% above what they actually told us that inflation should be at is by no means meeting its target. Another way to deceive you, just be careful with language as well here. Inflation is still way above the average that they promised us that would be last year, in fact. Another thing to remember is that if inflation is falling, but it's still not at its target, that can't be used as positive statistical data, right? Yes, of course, inflation may be falling, but it has not reached its target. And this is what we should focus on right now. Until it's not at 2% or even below that, it's a failure policy that they have not been able to implement within the economy.